Both Stan and Raheel, in their conference call conversation, which is how they met a few weeks ago, spoke about the spirituality of their traditions. And so we wanted to start with a gift from their spiritual communities, and Stan is going to begin that process.
So in my village, when I was growing up, I would be sitting in the house and playing about on the floor, and the grandmothers would come and gather for tea. And they would begin sharing life stories. And usually at some point in their visit, one of the women would say, "I've had a dream that I would like to share with you." And she would tell her dream in detail. And as it is within our culture, a dream is sacred, to be honored. And so those who were listening to the dream, as it was described, would respond by saying, "Mama Scats, isn't that amazing? Isn't that a wonderful gift you've been given?" And no challenging about the significance of the dream, no questions that would undermine the value of it, but the acceptance of the gift. And so we have dream. And I think that's why we gather this evening.
My personal spiritual awakening came through a poet by the name of Rumi, who today is one of the world's best-read poets, I believe, who was a 13th century scholar, academic, teacher, poet. And I want to share a blessing from Rumi with all of you, if I may, as a beginning to this beautiful evening. He says, "Lord of beauty, Lord of grace, enter my soul, like one who enters a garden in bloom. One glance of you from you, and stones turn to rubies. One hint from you, and every goal is within reach. Come, come, you are the life and salvation of man. Come, you are the eye and light of Joseph. Touch my head, for your touch removes the darkness from my body. Come, for you bestow beauty and grace. Come, for you are the cure of 1,000 ills. Come, even though you have never left." How beautiful is that? Come, even though you have never left. Come and hear some poetry. Sit in the place of my soul, for you are 1,000 souls of mine. Beyond your cares and your ancient longings, you are the beloved. So let us share.
So this evening we're going to hear Raheel and Stan reflect on their own journeys and these themes of diversity, transformation, and hope.
I was born in Pakistan too many years ago for me to tell you. And I'm a Muslim. I was born into a Muslim family. And the reason I say that is that I learned my faith just as dogma. And this is how it was, never any questioning, this is who you are, important in a family, not really too many explanations. And when I asked questions, we were told, just do it. That was that generation. Our children wouldn't do that today, but, so there was a lot of dogma, and there wasn't an understanding of diversity. If I were to tell you that it opened my heart, my spirit, my soul when I came to Canada 25 years ago, because by that time I had 2 children who were the Y generation, and they wanted questions answered. Everything was why. It was my first exposure to understand that Islam is not a monolith, that my faith of 1.2 billion people is actually very, very diverse. And, in Canada, we see that diversity at its best. There are Muslims here from almost 60 different parts of the world. They speak different languages, they wear different dress, they eat different foods, they may have a different culture. The common thread that binds us is the spiritual message of the faith. My children were going to school with children of many other communities and traditions. And, they would come and ask questions. They had never been exposed. And I told them that, this is a study in world religions without having to pay the cost. And, this is the beauty of the diversity we live with. Today, I wear a locket around my neck which has 7 or 8 major faith traditions stamped on it. And this is my mantra. This is the journey, where the journey has brought me, to be open to everyone. And Rumi tells us that there are many different paths that lead to the one spirit, the one creator. And, I look around, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the comedian Bob Hope. Somebody once asked him, do you believe in God? And he said, yes, of course I do. I go to church every Sunday, but I also go to a temple, a synagogue, and a mosque because I don't want to miss out heaven on a small technicality. So, you're all so serious.
Yeah.
Relax.
The desire within First Peoples generally, within the global context, is an understanding that we share life. And that philosophy, that spirituality, is a way of meeting people of diverse backgrounds and accepting them and being in conversation with them and almost always feasting with them. I gather that this reunion is also going to include feasting. For those of you who are here for the full event, a wonderful way to be community. So feasting is still a central part of our acknowledging diversity.
You spoke about colonization. I too come from a country that was colonized. And while there were some wonderful things, the fact that I can speak English, thanks to the colonizers, it's left an impact. And, it has created conflict among the generation of my parents who were immigrants from one country to another because of colonization. And then we too are now immigrants. But I think the time has come for us to stop thinking of ourselves as immigrants, because Canada is now a country that is made up of diverse communities. And we have started now using the word Canadian.
And it's a teaching that the elders have said is prophetic about how we can be. That one day, when the four winds blow, the people will come together, and the people will be healed, and the earth will be healed. And that's the part of the transformation I think that we are slowly learning about, that we must care for the earth. And I'd be interested to know, in your experience in the schools of the colonizer. By the way, we shared the same colonizer. We have much in common. But I'd be interested to know how that was, the connection to the land.
Yes. Again, in all the dogma, we forgot the spiritual connection with the land. But in the spiritual message of Islam and in the faith, there is a great deal of respect for the land. And there are some wonderful stories where during the time of the message to the Prophet 1400 years ago with tribal communities, and of course there were tribal communities, they lived in the desert, so they lived off of the land and whatever the land offered. And these were also tribal communities that were engaged in conflict and war with each other, because that was a way of life for them. And he advised them that, when there is conflict and war between you, you must be very conscious never to harm the earth, never to harm the trees and the flowers, places of worship, women and children, those who are not combat to combat. So certainly the concept of nature, he taught his children, and as an example to others, that when you use water, you just use enough. That, we perform ablution with water before we pray 5 times a day. And it was, you use just enough for your need and not to waste it. So there is a great deal of importance. And the Sufis sit in a circle and they share this. There's a beautiful story about a Sufi teacher who was invited to a class to give a talk. And there were windows, and as he came in, through the open window, there was a branch of a tree, and a bird came and sat there and started singing. And the teacher came, and he stood at the podium, and he stood at the podium, and the bird finished singing and left, and he said, "I'm done, thank you," and he left.